I've heard people say Hawaii has a really low sales tax, but that's not true because Hawaii doesn't have a sales tax at all. I'll explain coming up next. What's going on, friends? Dylan Nonaka here with the Buy Big Island video blog. And a lot of times people say, wow, Hawaii has a really low sales tax because they get their bill at the restaurant or whatever they buy and they see that it's 4.7 or 4.5%. And maybe where they came from, it's higher, 8%, 9% in a lot of other places when they see that on their receipt. But the reality is Hawaii doesn't have a sales tax. Hawaii has a general excise tax. And what's different about it is a sales tax is paid by the consumer. So when the consumer goes and buys something, they add the sales tax onto what they buy, and then they pay that to the state. On the other hand, in Hawaii, a general excise tax is a tax that businesses pay. So a lot of businesses will pass it on to the consumer, so it feels like a sales tax, but the reality is all businesses in Hawaii have to pay a general excise tax of 4% to the state on all of their gross revenue. So it's not really a sales tax to the consumer, it's a tax on businesses to the state. And what's interesting about it is that it is paid on everything. So every good and service in the economy, pretty much in Hawaii, you pay a 4% tax to the state. And it doesn't matter whether or not you make money, it doesn't matter if you're profitable or not, it's whatever your gross revenue was for the month, you calculate 4% and you pay it to the state. The reason that it's a little bit higher when the consumer actually pays it, so the state allows businesses to pass that tax on to the consumer. So you see that on the end of your bill where they add an additional 4.5 or 4.7%. The reason that it's higher than 4%, so the business pays 4%, but the actual consumer pays a little bit more because the business is passing that tax on, and the state allows businesses to add on the cost of calculating that tax. And then additionally, the counties are allowed to add on an additional 0.5%. So in some counties, they do the full 0.5%, so it's really 4.5% that's going to be paid to the state and the county, and then they calculate that out when they pass it on to the consumer at 4.7%. So it's a little bit complicated depending on the county. Not all counties implement it fully. Some of them only do a 0.25%, so it's a little bit different. It really varies between 4.1 and 4.7% depending on which county you're in the state of Hawaii. So it's a general excise tax, it's not a sales tax, and really it generates more money than a sales tax does because it's charged on every good and service at every point in sale in the economy. And the way I like to explain it so people understand it and how this generates compounding revenue for the state is that if a farmer sells a cow to a butcher shop, they pay 4% on what they make on that cow. And so now the meat market processes that cow and makes hamburger, and they sell that meat to a restaurant. The restaurant is going to pay that 4%, or that butcher shop is going to pay the 4% to the state on the revenue they get from selling it to the restaurant. And now the restaurant takes that hamburger and they cook it and they sell it to a consumer. And so now that restaurant is going to pay 4% on the sale of that hamburger to the consumer, to the state, which they pass on to the consumer at the end of the transaction. And a lot of times it's passed on at every point of sale. So it's not a sales tax. It's charged at every point of sale in the economy, and it's charged on everything: gas, food, medicine. A lot of states will exempt certain things or things that may be deemed essential, and they don't charge the sales tax on those things to give a break to the consumer and lessen the tax burden. But in Hawaii, they charge it on everything. We even pay it on our real estate commission. So we got to pay, no matter how many commissions we make throughout the month, we got to pay 4% to the state. And you will see sometimes on a listing contract that brokerages will charge the general excise tax on top of the commission because they're going to have to pay that to the state. So not exactly a sales tax. It's a little bit complicated, but it's important to understand the difference, because in Hawaii, if you're going to start a small business, or when you understand what you're paying on your bill, it's better to understand what you're actually paying for and how it all works. So if you have any questions, as always, put them in the comments below or email me at dylan@buybigisland.com and I will answer it. But taxes are always fun. It's good to understand what your overall tax burden is going to be. In Hawaii, you're pretty much going to pay 4 to 4.7% on anything that you buy. So that's how sales tax or general excise tax works in Hawaii. Thanks for watching. Aloha.